What are you doing? That's my canteen.
Yeah, I'm peeing in your canteen. You'll thank me later when we run out of water.
What the?
I saw the note on the calendar. We're going into the wild. I've been watching some survival shows to prepare. Hand me your hat.
All right, first, stop peeing in my canteen. Pee on your own hat.
I already did.
We're not going into the wild. We're talking Unearthed Arcana into the wild this week on the Dungeon Master's Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Master's Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today.
Hey, Scott. Hey, Bill.
You have a towel?
Hello.
No, I don't, but I'm glad it was your canteen.
A Swiffer, maybe? Because not only did he pee in my canteen, he's not particularly accurate.
Well, I don't know what to say. I've had plenty of marksmanship practice, but I don't know. It's a smaller hole than the bowl, it's a canteen.
Not anymore. It's your canteen.
You'll be thanking me when we run out of water. I'm just saying.
Well, you'll take his canteen and we'll just take yours that's going to be full of water, and then we won't run out of water.
It's either that or it's a saltwater enema. Yeah, I saw Bear Grylls do that. It looked uncomfortable.
Gee, I can't imagine why.
It was a very awkward part of the episode.
Unlike this right now.
And we're talking about Into the Wild. So Unearthed Arcana, granted, this is 3 years old.
Well, how about before that? We give some of our listeners a thanks.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, let's
we
do
have
that.
to.
We have some other stuff to do. The great state of California has done something amazing, not just with wine and acting, but
They rocked it this month so far.
yeah.
Yeah, their listenership skyrocketed in California,
Yeah.
so that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, tell all your friends.
And for the other 49 states, all right, let's pick up the slack.
Yeah,
Okay.
guys, come on. You're better than this. Get your head in the game. Come on. We're counting on you.
Especially Massachusetts.
Especially Massachusetts.
Hometown, I might.
That's right.
Yeah.
Glorious Commonwealth.
And we're moving on.
And we're moving on. We're having a hard time here, right? We have a pile of stuff that we are trying to give away.
Big pile of stuff.
And it's huge. And so it's still going on. Guys, we want to give you like a pile of stuff. Help us out.
All you gotta
giveaway's
do
still going on.
A couple of reviews. That it's not that difficult.
Do a review on Apple or Podchaser.
Or even now, Podbean, if you're using
Podbean,
the
our
app.
new home.
Yep, if you use an app, you can always leave us something there.
Yep, that is true as well. One of the things that makes it even more convenient, because we care about your convenience, because you're our listeners and you're awesome, we put all the links you need on our homepage at the DungeonMastersDojo.com. So head over to there, and there'll be a link to everything that'll open up in a brand new window. So you don't have to keep hitting the back button, because that could be like frustrating and really inconvenient, especially if like you're doing it at work and your boss walks in and then you got to close all these windows. So
There's even a photo of all the stuff you can get.
Yeah, there is. So
and it just lists a description of everything that's
and
there.
it's a lot. I think we went a little overboard, but you guys are worth it. So even if, have the folks in your gaming group pop on, send us an email, leave us a review, introduce them to the podcast, because I know you guys probably have a gaming group, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I will apologize, though. These guys wouldn't let me put 2 pounds of hardtack in along with everything else.
No.
No.
We
care about you.
We realize how expensive dentistry is.
It would have came with instructions.
Yes, do not eat. So, yeah, go ahead and do that. Head over to dungeonmastersdojo.com. Click on those links. Leave us some
A comment, a review.
A review.
Say something good. Say something bad. We don't care. You're leaving us a review.
Yeah, and send us an email.
Yeah,
to let us know that you did that, and you will automatically the millisecond that happens, you will be entered into our super high-tech database where a winner will be selected once we hit
500.
500. I know there's at least 500 of you out there.
And the thing about sending an email, you can do it right from our webpage, and
Yes,
it generates it for you and sends it to us.
Yeah, and that's even more convenient. And then we will pick a winner, and we will let you know, whoever the winner is, that we're sending out this boatload of stuff to you. And you really will have everything you need to start running a game. I mean, there's dice in there. How many dice sets?
12.
Bill? 12? 12?
12 dice sets.
12 dice sets.
4 dice trays.
4 dice trays.
Starter set.
There's-
Essential set.
My God,
Out of
there's
the
so
box.
much stuff.
Yeah, that's
Von
right.
Richten's. A couple OSRs are in there.
Isn't there Curse of Strahd?
The Curse of Strahd, yeah.
The box set.
Box
set.
set.
Yep.
Not the book. The boxed set. It's shaped like a coffin. There's probably a real vampire in there, so be careful opening it.
I suggest garlic bread. Just to
Very,
even say
a very short vampire. It's not a big box. But halfling vampires can be dangerous as well.
That they can.
damn ankle biters.
Yeah. Get you on that ankle. You're done. Done.
So please contact us, jump on there, leave a review, and get a chance to get a boatload of stuff.
A ton of stuff.
All right, we've pleaded enough. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Into the wild.
Into the wild we go.
Let me go get my backpack. I'll be right back.
Yep. I've got a canteen full of urine all ready to go in case we...
You can keep that and Bill's hardtack.
Bill's... The... Well, that urine will soften up the hardtack, won't it?
I'm not going to find out.
Years ago, back in the old days,
Yep.
right? So this Unearthed Arcana is supposed to be, well, it's unofficial. So I imagine at some point in time it's going to make its appearance in a book or something like that. It's supposed to be kind of a supplement to Chapter 5 of the Dungeon Master's Guide and Chapter 8 of the Player's Handbook. We had, God, there was tons of stuff back in the day. Second edition had to have been the most complete edition of the game ever as far as
I don't think they left
information.
any stone unturned.
I don't know if it was the most complete. I think 4th edition had over 80 books at
Rubbish.
one time before they were even done.
Yeah, 80 books. I mean, that's great. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
But it was 4th edition.
I didn't play it.
Well,
And how many of those
Second-
were modules or campaigns or supplements or whatever you call them these days?
yeah, I am curious. I bet you 2nd edition has 4th beat with stuff.
Oh, I'm sure it does. It was, and for me, it was a more complete, rounded. Than
Yeah, I mean
the
it
4th edition.
We had the Wilderness Survival Guide was the book that you went to for such things, such as surviving in the wilderness. It's implied in the name, if you must know, and it dealt with a lot of the stuff here. Now, in reading through this, I don't know your thoughts. A lot of it seems like common sense,
All right. First off, common sense is no longer common.
and that's how you know
I'm old.
somebody is old is when their common sense isn't so damn common. And the only thing, like when Bill really wants to accentuate the fact that he's making a solid point from centuries of wisdom,
Oh, here it comes.
and he's having a meal, he will gesture with his fork while doing that, so that you better listen, because there's some wisdom
That's old
being
school.
dropped. Yep.
I'm so badass, I even use a fork with my tapioca pudding.
Yeah, he eats an apple with a pocket knife.
Well, doesn't everybody?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to get your tongue cut.
I'm speechless, Scott.
Yeah.
I've never cut myself or anyone else
Neither
by
have I.
accident.
But for an experienced dungeon master, game master, whatever title you want to give to yourself, a lot of this is all common sense stuff. But I think it is really valuable for a fledgling DM, someone
True.
who is a novice, if you will, or just not as experienced.
Some people just don't have any personal experience with the outdoors.
Yeah, I mean that's and that's.
I mean, think of it, if you're in a ferry, if you're in a city, how often do you? The park is maybe once a year at camp or something like that, but and that's few and far between. You just don't have a lot of exposure to the wilderness.
Yeah, that's true.
I grew up in the wilderness.
Well, they didn't have cities back then.
No, they didn't. I mean, everyone was feral.
Yeah, and and then poof, here comes Sumer and Babylon, and
I think I still have my first loincloth.
and it all went to shit.
Yeah, I think you're right. For someone who's brand new and doesn't have a lot of experience with running this or personal experience with wilderness in general, this could be very, very helpful because it will give you some guidelines. You could take some cues from movies and things like that, but a lot of that's sensationalized, and there's a lot of I don't know, author or producer influence in that. So sometimes it's not necessarily true.
I think as far as how you set up a campaign in the wilderness or outside of a dungeon or a city or a castle or fortress, whatever have you, this does a pretty good job of giving you an idea of what the different phases of the adventure potentially could be.
True.
Choose a destination. Right? That's important. Where are we going?
Point A to point B. You got to have a point B.
And whether or not that's chosen immediately at the beginning or later on, all depends on the DM and what the adventure is. It may be I need you to go really from point A to point B and pick this up or research this or look for that or whatever have you, and then come back. Or it could be you're shipwrecked somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know where your destination is yet. You're looking for where civilization is or whatever have you.
Lou, did you notice how he looked right at me when he said you're shipwrecked?
I did.
Why is it? He had that little glint, almost like.
Why is that? Because never get on a boat in one of Bill's campaigns, because it's gonna fucking sink. Every boat in Bill's campaign was designed by the same person that built the Titanic. That shit is sinking.
But they were luxurious.
So the first thing you do if you got to get on one of Bill's boats is
get
know where the lifeboat is, first of all, and take your metal armor off so you don't sink to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, because just because you can swim doesn't mean you're not going to sink if you're wearing it.
Right.
Yeah, I had a lot of players forget that.
Yep, all that padding underneath the armor.
That soaks up all that water.
Yep, it's an extra 100 or so pounds, and metal's heavy.
Metal is heavy, even chainmail,
It is
scale
not
mail.
buoyant.
Yeah, no.
Doesn't matter how strong you are.
Yes.
You're just a flailing anchor.
Yep, and there you go. So remember that. Don't get on a boat captained by Bill.
Like you said, point A to point B. Perhaps it's as simple as just follow the yellow brick road. Okay, fine. A lot of times there is a path, then there isn't, or vice versa. You can change it up halfway through. Depends on the scenario. If you're going to a well-known castle, there's probably a road. If you're going to a castle that's abandoned in ruins, that road is probably in just as bad a shape, if not worse.
That is true.
Nature has a habit of taking things back real fast.
Here's a question for you guys.
Oh, do tell.
How do you determine the time and length of travel when you're in the wilderness from getting from point A to point B? I know a lot of people will spread it out and possibly overdo it, and some people are probably just too short. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's a happy medium. Where if you're gonna travel, a lot of our big campaigns involve travel.
Lots of travel.
Yeah,
long distances.
And having a pretty clear idea of where you're going is important, of course. But I only like to get into travel if it's consequential. So if the party's traveling somewhere, is there a plot hook that's going to, show up? Some encounters that are potentially going to move the story forward? Any number of things. And then I'll certainly have that in there. If it's just, okay, this is a well-traveled road and you're going from one city to the other, a well-guarded caravan, generally I won't bother too much with it because the chances of something happening, unless it's to further the plot, isn't really worth the time. But there's a lot of different factors in travel. Are there roads?
Absolutely,
Are you riding? Are you riding on a horse? Are you in a wagon? What's the weather?
Mm-hmm.
Is it winter? Is it spring and everything's all muddy? Are you laden with supplies? Is someone injured? You're only going to go as fast as your slowest party member too. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
And we're talking about the wilderness too. And a lot of times you can just turn around and say, okay, I'm hunting and I'm foraging. Okay, depending on what time of year, there might be nothing to forage. So
Yeah.
now you are laden down with more supplies. Everyone loves springtime. It's warm, it's green, it's beautiful. Problem is there's nothing to eat. Nothing's grown yet. It's still too early, especially early spring with a little bit of, you got plenty of water, still snow and whatnot. But I use the weather a lot because I do have a background in wilderness survival and stuff like that. So I will bring the elements of that in. And like he said, if it's not plot specific, and it doesn't further the story, then there's really not much use. It basically it's a waste of time to throw a bunch of encounters to injure and or possibly kill a party member for no reason other than it's something to do before you get there. You could jeopardize your party members as well as your story by injuring and or killing somebody because of bad dice rolls, or someone makes a stupid decision or makes a great decision and the dice decided they're going to do stupid things. So why take that chance and just, all right, well, it took you 2 weeks, and in the meantime, you've done some studying and some sparring, and and you worked with him and she worked with you, and you both worked with that guy, and you've furthered your studies a little bit, towards your next levels, and then you move on. I will use on occasion, if the story is real heavy, I'll use an encounter or two maybe to lighten the mood a little bit. Getting in a food fight with an old man with some cabbage because he won't move his cart off the bridge is, things like that, just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. And it helps bracket those serious moments. You just had a big fight. People are hurt. You lost the item that you were supposed to get. And now you're chasing them down. And here's this stupid old man who won't move his ass or his cart or his horse off of the bridge, and you need to get by, and he's blocking the whole thing. Now, do you help him? Do you hinder him? He gets into a food fight, start hucking cabbage and tomatoes at you, and it helps lighten the mood a little bit, and then you can get back into the serious stuff.
We had rangers back in the day and druids, and if you were doing any sort of like wilderness anything, one of those was essential to have in the party, and that's one of the big gripes I have with 5th edition. As much as I like this rule set, there's no specialists. Right, everybody's pretty much the same. They're cookie cutter. Where your rangers and your druids and that sort of thing, they really shined in a wilderness setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had their moment.
Yeah, and it's a shame that, to some degree they would too in 5th edition, but it just seems like everybody can do everything.
Yeah, well, I've been saying right along, it seems like they're homogenizing.
Yeah,
quite a bit,
which is too bad.
I think every supplement that comes out just blends them a little bit more. Some of these subclasses are taking abilities from other classes, and you're right. Everyone, if you're a hero, everyone starts at epic level because you can do everything everyone else can.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any flaws.
There's no vibrant colors.
There
it's
you go.
all shades of gray.
Yep.
Which is too bad. So they give you this rule for navigation DCs, and it's pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job. DCs are not all that difficult. Destination lacks a path, but is in dense terrain, such as a forest or mountains with a DC 15. That's about what I throw at it. And then it gets really hard where, it's hidden using illusions and other magic at DC 25. It's hidden. You're not supposed to be able to find it easily.
Right. Yeah.
So that the chart does, there's obviously more there, but they do a really good job of kind of blending it up. And I think the numbers are pretty much where they need to be on that.
And then there's activities they come up with, which is, everybody chooses an activity. What are we doing? Maybe I'm hunting or foraging or something like that. One person has to be navigating so you don't get lost.
Yep.
It's a little too much like playing house for my tastes. Again, I like to have, any travel that's happening, there's got to be like a purpose for playing it out. What is going on?
Well, the other side of the coin is you have a bunch of players with skills, and if you keep pushing them through the areas where they can use those skills, what's the sense of having the skills?
Right.
So you got to kind of balance it a little bit.
Yeah. Resolving activities like navigation, of course, is important. Becoming lost, if you don't navigate well, they have a pretty short table on, becoming lost.
They do, but at least they addressed it.
Yeah, which is important because what's the sense of navigating it if you never get lost and there's no penalty for getting lost?
Right.
Random encounters are something that I always like to have in wilderness travel. And we started doing this a while ago where random encounters, well, they're not always combat oriented. Sometimes your random encounter is a weather event, which I think in the wilderness is equally as
very applicable.
And just as dangerous as a band of bandits or orcs or something. So I like to have a custom kind of random encounter table.
Well, we've both done that for years where we've generated 10, 15, 20 items 30. or more 30. Yeah,
30 is the sweet spot.
30 is the sweet spot. It is now. More on that later. We'll come up with a whole bunch of them, and you're right. The majority of them are non-combat. Now, remember, you're not the only thing out there foraging and scavenging and trying to get by day to day either.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could run into some pretty weak and mediocre monsters, but you could stumble into something really big and nasty because they just happen to come out of their lair and decide to go munch on something or go take a crap or you never know why you're going to bump into one of these things. But you look over the hillside and you see like a Zorn. And the last thing you want to do is mess with that at third level.
Yep.
And there's no reason to. It doesn't know you're there yet. And even if it does, sometimes an expeditious retreat might be in order.
And there's this thing now, and I don't, I don't want to sound like I'm kind of crapping all over 5th edition, but there was this thing with balanced encounters that has been happening more and more frequently as we've gotten away from the older style of encounters, where they're all balanced, and you brought up a 3rd level party in a Zorn. You probably wouldn't see that in a 5th ed encounter, but back in the old days, not every encounter was supposed to be an encounter.
Exactly.
And not every encounter was a winnable encounter either. You had to figure it out.
You had limitations, and recognizing those limitations was part of being a good player.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of 3rd level, but you know something? That dragon, we could take it. Why? Because 5th edition says it can't kill us right away. Yeah, bullshit.
I think there's a lot to be said for those encounters that you should stray away from. It really lets you know that okay, it's dangerous out here.
Yeah, you're not the top of the food chain.
Yeah, and that's important. So unbalance your encounters.
Absolutely.
I think in a lot of this, common sense is gone. People are actually trying to play their characters without using common sense. From what I've read, a lot of people just, my character, like Bill said, it's not going to die instantly, and I can't technically die because somebody else is going to bring me back anyway with healing word or whatever. But I think a lot of common sense is gone from the game in some cases, and I think that's mainly I won't say the newer players, and I won't say the older players. I'll say it's the people in the middle.
The inexperienced players.
Yeah, that they're pushing the envelope a little bit too much.
Yep.
Yeah, and and that's good. I mean, that's adventurous, but you can die doing that. So just understand that, okay, it's like I'm all for unbalanced encounters, not every encounter. But if, I would throw a dragon in a game with a third level party. It might be a sleeping dragon. Might be a dragon eating someone's livestock. And then the party would have to decide. We going to go poke the dragon? Or are we just going to kind of slink away and go about our business?
Hence, common sense.
And when it turns and looks at you and goes, really? You want to do this? I'm actually going to give you a few moments to think this over.
Yeah.
You as a party member should think it over.
Yeah. In the wilderness is a perfect place to put these unbalanced encounters.
It is. Because like I said, even the big bad's got to go out there and just go for a stretch, a walk, go get something to drink, eat, take a dump.
But just like everyday life, nothing is balanced.
No, it is not.
And I'm on the same bandwagon as Scott here when it comes to the gravitating towards balance encounters. Bad idea.
Yeah.
You have to show them the limitations. You have to let them experience their limitations.
Yeah, and that's not to say build meat grinder.
No, by no means. And it's not every encounter either.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
And it shouldn't be.
You don't want that me against you mentality by any means. But throwing one in there once in a while just to say, okay, just a reminder, you are not at the top of the food chain. Okay, you barely qualify as a speed bump here in this particular encounter. So just move along your merry way. Keep quiet. Keep your mouth shut. Join your hardtack and move on to the next one. Mapping the wilderness.
Yeah, mapping is something that, that's a relic from the very early days.
Yeah, it is.
There was a party mapper, party spokesperson.
Cartographer.
Yeah. And that
was actually a skill, if I remember.
Yeah. Cartography and limner.
Yep.
The cartographer was the one that read the map, and the limner was the one that actually made the maps.
I think for the sake of nostalgia, that's pretty neat. But I never really met anybody that did an accurate job of mapping out anything based on description.
Based on description, you do the best you can, because even skilled people that know how to map still have to work off of the resources that are given them. And if the resources are poor, so is going to be your map. So if you have a game master that cannot probably put forth a very good mental picture of what he has in his head, your map's going to suffer, no matter how good a limner or cartographer you are. But that's part of the joy too, because that brings a little realism to it.
And I think that's probably the best point, that for this whole mapping thing is, because if I have a vision, and I'll use an example. When I was running the game at our week-long with Eric, I believe, I had sat down with him and said, and we looked at the map that we had built, and I said, this is where the warehouse is going to be. It's going to be on the edge of a cliff. And he misunderstood me and put it somewhere else. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Because my description did not fit his description, and he moved it, and we just ran with it after that. But it's the same thing.
It's difficult to be on the same page, especially when dealing with maps and the abstractness that is inherent in maps.
Yes.
Because scale to different people is different things.
And just what I have or what I've seen, and I repeat it to you, and then you go to repeat it to Scott, it's going to change a little bit.
Interpretation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's the fun part. But I do like what they did with the mapping here, because they actually brought up some of the skills involved in how those skills would apply to mapping. So you have athletics, history, nature, stealth, and survival. Now, survival is obvious. Athletics, to see whether or not you can get through broken ground, difficult terrain, mountain peaks, and a failure slows the party and possibly causing injury. So you got to make that athletics. Your history, to see if you remember where an old road was, or the identity of the ruins that you just found. Maybe correlating that between a myth or a legend, nature, checking to make sure anyone identify what sort of creatures dwell in the area based on subtle clues. Like I said, you find this pile of crap that's 2 feet tall, you might want to stay away from the monster that left that, right? Stealth, dexterity for heavily patrolled areas that are under watch or trying to get around specific creatures that are possibly intelligent. And of course, survival is basically survival. Be able to get, stay away from poisonous plants, stay away from features like quicksand and stuff like that, other hazards, and then be able to find food and water. So I like the fact that they did address the different skills that can be used by different people.
Your outdoorsy bard.
Because he's really bad. That's to spend all his nights in the woods.
Tactical terrain is something that I think is really key in encounters and in determining travel. When, I always try to think of your monsters, the foes for your party, as things that think. I mean, they may not be the brightest, right? But they're going to know to use certain things to their advantage. Particularly, if you have kobolds or whatever have you, they're not the most powerful of opponent, but certainly they would try to make up for that by ambushing in terrain that is going to slow down or encumber the party, or they perhaps take the higher ground and rain stones and arrows and other thrown objects down on the party. So use terrain to the benefit of your party's opponents.
One of the things I've done in the past is taken weaker monsters, and they will draw the party into a heavy cover or a series of bushes or hedgerows or something like that seems almost labyrinth-like or maze-like, where the creature knows it, that's their everyday travels, but the party doesn't. And you can, in that way, sometimes split up some of the party members. And then 2 or 3, kobolds that against a 6-member party has no chance. But 3 kobolds against your 1 priest.
Yep. Especially if there's, they're setting snares or traps or
just enough to slow them down, harry them, and then they go in, guerrilla tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
So terrain could be very instrumental in that. The ambient mood.
Yeah, they give you this sample region called the Moon Hills, where they go through and they give you the mood, the settlements, any ruins or dungeons that might be in the area, and exploration. What's worth checking into. It is almost reminiscent of Keep on the Borderlands, which was very much so like a wilderness / dungeon crawl kind of adventure module.
Right.
I think this is a neat piece of work. Honestly, though, in my opinion, if you really want something to elevate your wilderness game, then see if you could pick up a copy of the Wilderness Survival Guide. It's 2nd edition, but the information in it is still good.
Well, it's viable, yeah, because the conversion, what few things you need to convert over are very easy to do so. But most of the charts, a D20 chart is a D20 chart. A D10 chart is still a D10 chart. You're using the same die.
Yeah, the equipment is the same, and for that matter, there's the Dungeoneer's Survival Guide, and I wanted to say there was a 3rd one, but I don't remember what it is, or maybe I'm just like...
I can't remember.
The 80s and the early 90s are a little foggy for me.
They're a blur. We understand.
Yeah.
We were there.
Yeah.
I was there.
The 1880s?
You were there.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little charts here. Navigation DCs for this particular area. Planar confluence. Ooh. because you are dealing with the Feywild. So you sometimes can bump into things that are going to touch on other planes of existence. Then you have your tactical terrain as well. So they do a nice little job having a couple of things there. And all you do is just transfer this over. And if it's a much steeper, rockier area, then make your DCs a little harder and change your explanations just a touch. And if it's a little smoother desert, so you can use these charts kind of.
I was going to say, for a new DM, which we're going to put the link to this in the description, this would be something for them to take, and they can actually use this. What was that first one called? The Moon Hills.
The Moon Hills, yeah.
They can actually use that in part of their adventure because it's set up for them, and they still get an understanding.
Yep.
And be able to play through it and then learn from it and then make their own after.
Yeah, use what's in here. You change a couple of names if you need to. Add names as you do.
On it.
You know, if you already have the beginnings of a world or a world that you've been using, and you have your own campaign setting, incorporate this. Just change the names to match it to your campaign setting, and boom, you're ready to go. So that way, people are familiar with your world, but you have something laid out for you already.
But even, I think Scott calls these store-bought modules. Or
yes.
You can
the retail modules.
The retail modules, the campaign books. If you guys are doing traveling and you're not sure what to do in between, you could take something like this and just slice it right in there, and it gives you an idea of what we're talking about. And this way, you can actually, like Scott said, expound on it. Like Bill said, change it up a little bit, and it'll become second nature in a couple, 2 or 3 tries.
And this is a good template as well. So you can take this and listen, and you change it out, but it's all right. I'm going to be in a desert. So now just think of what a desert's going to be like. Use the same DCs, but just go into your incremental difficulties where there's a sandstorm instead of a forest.
Right, because if you think about it, just because we say into wilderness doesn't mean it has to be full of trees.
No,
the desert is its own wilderness. Your water,
the ocean
is its
own
wilderness.
Wilderness is somewhere where there is not civilization.
Yep.
And there's a lot of different areas that do not have civilization.
And you can get a copy of the Wilderness Survival Guide on the DM's Guild.
I was wondering what you're doing over on your tablet there.
That's right. They do all the old second edition stuff.
Yep. It's worth grabbing to up your game. And I think it's there's no need to wait for Fifth Ed to put something out like that. Check out the older editions. You don't have to buy a book that's 40 years old.
No, or even go to where do we get this on?
Unearthed Arcana?
Unearthed Arcana, yeah. We just go download that, and this is a start. And then it may give you a little taste for it, and you may want to go get that book on the DM's Guild.
And there you go.
And that's a look at the Unearthed Arcana Into the Wild. We'll see you next time in the dojo. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.